Now, projecting who is going to excel in a new space or a new area is hard as hell in general, and that isn't just in sports, it's in all walks of life. But we do know there are always a couple of players in each NFL draft who end up being much better on the field than where they were drafted. And one guy in this class who I think is going to outperform his draft position is former South Carolina quarterback Spencer Rattler. He's mocked around the 76th pick in the third round. And it's not just for what he brings on the field, but also who he's become off of it. Now, I can sit here and point out the obvious that he is able to do physically. He has a really good arm, right? He's got nice arm talent. He anticipates well. He can diagnose like Dr. House and spin it like Dr. Dre. And he also had awful protection all year. He got pressured on 40% of his dropbacks last season at South Carolina with an average at best run game to lean on. And all of that is true. But I think what separates Spencer Rattler in the grand scheme of things is his growth off the field. To be honest, I wasn't a fan of the way he acted out of high school and while he was at Oklahoma. He seemed to be a prisoner of the moment, and he would dictate his leadership on whether it was going good or whether it was going bad. He seemed like more of a me guy than a we guy. And we know that a lot of young people are like that, but not all young people can change. And ever since his transfer to Coach Beamer in South Carolina, he's not only handled adversity, he's overcome it. Now, you could make the argument that he was one of the most important individuals to his team's success in the country, and not just because he played quarterback. Now, he could have shut it down or made excuses with no protection or a bad run game, but that's not what he did. He led. He took the blame, and you could see it on the field as well. He knew when to get on a guy, and he knew when to tell someone to keep their head up. There's a big difference. Now, a lot of guys act like great leaders, but deep down, they really aren't when the cameras and coaches aren't around. We all know those guys. Some are natural-born leaders, and that's great. But to me, the best leaders are the guys who transform into it. And that's what Spencer Rattler has done. And when a guy has his ability physically and a newfound mental makeup, they can be awfully dangerous on Sundays, no matter where they get picked. We're bringing my co-host, former Michigan quarterback David Cohn, my brother, former Western State Colorado wide receiver Blaine Crane. And David, when I look at Spencer, does he have the best arm in the draft? No, but his arm's good enough to make every throw. He can make the whole shot. He's a nuanced thrower. He can layer the ball in. I love the way his game translates physically, but the mental side of it, we know that 90% of the game is 100% mental. I think him going through what he went through throughout the transfer portal, throughout the off-the-field stuff, has prepared him for maybe it not going great in the NFL early. True. And being able to bounce back. I think there's something to be said for that, but who's a guy that's kind of sneaking under the radar?
You're spot on about Spencer Rattler off the field. He clearly had a fall from grace after being a blue-chip prospect, one of the best in the country, came in with a lot of airs about him, a lot of attitude. The template that he's created after that fall from grace, I think is one, via his attitude and the way that he's conducted himself at a place in South Carolina where he didn't have a lot of protection up front. No. It wasn't going good. That template that he's created, I think, is going to be one that a lot of other kids follow when they get humbled in college. So that's the off-the-field stuff, which I'm glad you hit on. On the field, can we bring up clip one? Because I pulled a couple clips here. These are 3 plays for Spencer Rattler, all from the same game. This is against Florida. 3 different plays in the same game that I think showcase 3 different skill sets. Go ahead and run this quickly. We got a five and a hitch hitting the sail to the boundary, right? You're talking about the arm strength. I mean, clearly he can work through his progressions. He has all the tools. Here's a 5 and an anchor, enough arm strength to be able to get the ball over the top, even with someone in his face. Yep. But then obviously, here we go. 5 and a hitch, push the pocket, get out. I mean, that's against an SEC defense, being able to make plays. So if you're a team like, let's say the New York Giants or the Raiders, who have a need at quarterback, but also have needs all around the field, and you have the same value on Spencer Rattler that you do on, say, J.J. McCarthy or Bo Nix or maybe even Drake May, and you're thinking, man, we could get the same value in early to mid round 2 that a lot of teams are going to be pushing into the top 15 for. We could go tackle there. We could go wide receiver there. That's where it's really going to get interesting to me. In terms of sneakiest picks, man, the one I pulled was Ricky Pearsall. Talking about Florida, wide receiver from Florida. Right now, I believe everybody's talking about how deep this class is at quarterback. This class is equally as deep at wide receiver.
Deepest I've ever seen.
Right now, There are 10 wide receivers projected to go before Ricky Pearsall. I pulled a couple clips from him that showcases a skill set too. Let's play this real quick.
Oh,
so wide receiver out of Florida. I mean, first of all, being able to high point the ball with one hand, I mean, that could be candidate for catch of the year. We were watching that game together last year. Okay, I mean, that's one hand, high point, take the hit. How about end around from the slot?
Man, just smooth.
And enough juice to finish the run, too. And then how about this catch here? Over the top, playing center field. I mean, he has all the tools. You know, and the rest of the NFL better not let Sean McVay and the Rams draft him. You know, because that's the type of vibe,
like
the
call.
Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua type vibes that he could bring to a team. I think he's going to be very sought after. And if you can get him in the mid to late second round.
And remember, you can't touch him after 5 yards. So it's not like it's going to get harder down the field. You played in the SEC. You played against NFL DB.
God, man, I love watching Slick Rick play. Just that whole, the class they had when he was their receiver was absolute. They lost one kid who was absolute. He was a freshman. He was an absolute dog. But we're going to stay in that vein of receivers. I'm going to go with Luke McCaffrey.
Interesting.
Luke McCaffrey right now is a projected fourth-round receiver. He ran a 40 at 4.47. Came out of high school as a quarterback. Ended up switching from Nebraska to Rice as a receiver. Now, I don't know if that last name sounds familiar to you, but his dad, Ed McCaffrey, played receiver for the Broncos for multiple years. He has multiple brothers, not even his best one, and Christian, who's dominated the league, the best running back in the NFL. But there's something about one, hard to touch him in one-on-ones, very isolated receivers, bag is deep when it becomes to having all the routes in your bag. 2, can make plays on balls in the air, stuff that is hard to teach. 3, he used to be a quarterback. There's something about being a quarterback and making the transition to receiver in the NFL. You don't have to be the fastest, the strongest, but being the smartest. We see a lot of guys out there like this right now, the Lad McConkeys. I think Luke's going to be in the same vein as this. He gets in the right scheme, the right concept. I wouldn't be surprised to see him playing with his brother at the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, I don't ever think drafting a McCaffrey or taking a McCaffrey is like a bad. Like I don't think it was like, damn, like why would you do that? It's going to be interesting to see. I do wonder, if he's a guy. I think he can play outside and inside. Getting off press is something that I always find interesting when guys transition from quarterback, to wide receiver, because that's kind of a different skill set. But if anybody can do it, a McCaffrey can. We want to know who you think in the comments. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Who is the sneakiest under the radar player in the NFL draft? We gave you a quarterback and 2 wide receivers. Maybe you think it's a DB. Maybe you think it's a tight end. I mean, hell, you can give great examples. Brock Purdy was the last pick of the draft. Look what he's doing with the 49ers. And I don't even have to bring up Tom Brady. Yo, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for hanging out. If you haven't already, we really appreciate it. Turn that notification bell on so you know when we drop content that you like to follow and we like to give.